Part 4 of the Book of the National Parks. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Book of the National Parks by Robert Sterling Yard. Yosemite, the Incomparable. Yosemite National Park, Middle Eastern California. Area 1,125 square miles. The first emotion inspired by the sight of Yosemite is surprise. No previous preparation makes the mind ready for the actual revelation. The hardest preliminary reading and the closest study of photographs, even familiarity with other mountains as lofty or loftier, fail to dull one's first astonishment. Hard on the heels of astonishment comes realization of the park's supreme beauty. It is of its own kind, without comparison, as individual as that of the Grand Canyon or the Glacier National Park. No single visit will begin to reveal its sublimity. One must go away and return to look again with rested eyes. Its devotees grow in appreciative enjoyment with repeated summerings. Even John Muir, life student, interpreter, and apostle of the Sierra, confessed toward the close of his many years that the valley's quality of loveliness continued to surprise him at each renewal. And lastly comes the higher emotion, which is born of knowledge. It is only when one reads in these inspired rocks the stirring story of their making that pleasure reaches its fullness. The added joy of the collector upon finding that the unsigned canvas, which he bought only for its beauty, is the lost work of a great master, and was associated with the romance of a famous past, is here duplicated. Written history never was more romantic nor more graphically told than that which nature has inscribed upon the walls of these vast canyons, domes, and monoliths, in a language which man has learned to read. 1. The Yosemite National Park lies on the western slope of the Sierra Nevada Mountains in California, nearly east of San Francisco. The snowy crest of the Sierra, bellying irregularly eastward to a climax among the jagged granites and gale-swept glaciers of Mount Lyell, forms its eastern boundary. From this the park slopes rapidly 30 miles or more westward to the heart of the warm, luxuriant zone of the giant sequoias. This slope includes in its 1,125 square miles some of the highest scenic examples in the wide gamut of Sierra grandeur. It is impossible to enter it without exaltation of spirit, or describe it without superlative. A very large proportion of Yosemite's visitors see nothing more than the valley, yet no consideration is tenable which conceives the valley as other than a small part of the national park. The two are inseparable. One does not speak of knowing the Louvre who has seen only the Venus de Milo, or St. Mark's who has looked only upon its horses. Considered as a whole, the park is a sagging plain of solid granite, hung from Sierra's saw-tooth crest, broken into divides and transverse mountain ranges, punctured by volcanic summits, gashed and bitten by prehistoric glaciers, dotted near its summits with glacial lakes, furrowed by innumerable cascading streams, which combine in singing rivers, which in turn furrow greater canyons, some of majestic depth and grandeur. It is a land of towering spires and ambitious summits, serrated cirques, enormous isolated rock masses, rounded granite domes, polished granite pavements, lofty precipices, and long, shimmering waterfalls. Bare and gale-ridden near its crest, the park descends in 30 miles through all the zones and gradations of animal and vegetable life through which one would pass in traveling from the ice-bound shores of the Arctic Ocean the continent's length to Mariposa Grove. Its tree sequence tells the story. Above timberline there are none but inch-high willows and flat piney growths, mingled with tiny Arctic flowers, which shrink in size with elevation. Even the sheltered spots on Lyell's lofty summit have their colored lichens and their almost microscopic bloom. At timberline, low, wiry shrubs interweave their branches to defy the gales, merging lower down into a tangle of many stunted growths, from which spring twisted pines and contorted spruces, which the winds curve to leeward or bend at sharp angles, or spread in full development as prostrate upon the ground as the mountain lion's skin upon the home floor of his slayer. Descending into the great area of the Canadian zone, with its 1,000 wild valleys, its shining lakes, its roaring creeks and plunging rivers, the zone of the angler, the hiker, and the camper-out, we enter forests of various pines, of silver fir, hemlock, aged humpback juniper, and the species of white pine which Californians wrongly call tamarack. This is the paradise of outdoor living. It almost never rains between June and October. The forests fill the valley floors, thinning rapidly as they climb the mountain slopes. They spot with pine green the broad, shining plateaus, rooting where they find the soil, leaving unclothed innumerable glistening areas of polished, uncracked granite, a striking characteristic of Yosemite uplands. From an altitude of 7,000 or 8,000 feet, the Canadian zone forests begin gradually to merge into the richer forests of the transition zone below. The towering sugar pine, the giant yellow pine, the Douglas fir, and a score of deciduous growths, live oaks, bays, poplars, dogwoods, maples, begin to appear and become more frequent with descent, until 2,000 feet or more below, they combine into the bright, stupendous forest where, in specially favored groves, King Sequoia holds his royal court. Wild flowers, birds, and animals also run the gamut of the zones. Among the snows and alpine flowerets of the summits are found the ptarmigan and rosy finch of the Arctic Circle, and in the summit cirques and on the shores of the glacial lakes whistles the mountain marmot. The richness and variety of wildflower life in all zones, each of its characteristic kind, astonishes the visitor new to the American wilderness. Every meadow is ablaze with gorgeous coloring. Every copse and sunny hollow, river bank and rocky bottom becomes painted in turn the hue appropriate to the changing seasons. Now blues prevail in the kaleidoscopic display, now pinks, now reds, now yellows. Experience of other national parks will show that the Yosemite is no exception. All are gardens of wildflowers. The Yosemite and the Sequoia are, however, the exclusive possessors among the parks of a remarkably showy flowering plant, the brilliant, rare snow plant. So alluring is the red pillar which the snow plant lifts a foot or more above the shady mold, and so easily is it destroyed, that to keep it from extinction, the government finds covetous visitors for every flower picked. The birds are those of California, many, prolific, and songful. Ducks raise their summer broods fearlessly on the lakes. Geese visit from their distant homes. Cranes and herons fish the streams. Every tree has its soloist, every forest its grand chorus. The glades resound with the tapping of woodpeckers. The whir of startled wings accompanies passage through every wood. To one who has lingered in the forest to watch and to listen, it is hard to account for the widespread fable that the Yosemite is birdless. No doubt, happy, talkative tourists, in companies and regiments, afoot and mounted, drive bird and beast alike to silent cover, and comment on the lifeless forests. The whole range, from foothill to summit, is shaken into song every summer, wrote John Muir, to whom birds were the loved companions of a lifetime of Sierra summers, and, though low and thin in winter, the music never ceases. There are two birds which the unhurried traveler will soon know well. One is the big, noisy, gaudy Clark crow, whose swift flight and companionable squawk are familiar to all who tour the higher levels. The other is the friendly camp robber who, with encouragement, not only will share your camp luncheon, but will gobble the lion's share. Of the many wild animals, ranging in size from the great, powerful, timid grizzly bear, now almost extinct here, whose Indian name, by the way, is Yosemite, to the tiny shrew of the lowlands, the most frequently seen are the black or brown bear, and the deer, both of which, as compared with their kind in neighborhoods where hunting is permitted, are unterrified, if not friendly. Notwithstanding its able protection, the Yosemite will need generations to recover from the hideous slaughter which, in a score or two of years, denuded America of her splendid heritage of wild animal life. Of the several carnivora, the coyote alone is occasionally seen by visitors. Wolves and mountain lions, prime enemies of the deer and mountain sheep, are hard to find, even when officially hunted in winter with dogs trained for the purpose. 2. The Yosemite Valley is the heart of the national park. Not only is it the natural entrance and abiding place, the living room, so to speak, the central point from which all parts of the park are comfortably accessible, it is also typical in some sense of the Sierra as a whole, and is easily the most beautiful valley in the world. It is difficult to analyze the quality of the valley's beauty. There are, as Muir says, many Yosemites in the Sierra. The Hetch Hetchy Valley in the northern part of the park, which bears the same relation to the Tuolumne River that the Yosemite Valley bears to the Merced, is scarcely less in size, richness, and the height and magnificence of its carved walls. Scores of other valleys, similar except for size, abound north and south, which are scientifically, and in Muir's meaning, Yosemites. That is, they are pauses in their river's headlong rush, once lakes, dug by rushing waters, squared and polished by succeeding glaciers, chiseled and ornamented by the frosts and rains which preceded and followed the glaciers. Muir is right, for all these are Yosemites. But he is wrong, for there is only one Yosemite. It is not the giant monoliths that establish the Incomparable Valley's world supremacy. Hetch Hetchy, Tehipite, Kings, and others have their giants too. It is not its towering, perpendicular, serrated walls. The Sierra has elsewhere, too, an overwhelming exhibit of titanic granite carvings. It is not its waterfalls, though these are the highest by far in the world, nor its broad, peaceful bottoms, nor its dramatic vistas, nor the cavernous depths of its tortuous tributary canyons. Its secret is selection and combination. Like all supremacy, Yosemite's lies in the inspired proportioning of carefully chosen elements. Herein is its real wonder, for the more carefully one analyzes the beauty of the Yosemite Valley, the more difficult it is to conceive its ensemble the chance of nature's functioning rather than the master product of supreme artistry. Entrance to the Yosemite by train is from the west, by automobile from east and west both. From whatever direction, the valley is the first objective, for the hotels are there. It is the valley, then, which we must see first. Nature's artistic contrivance is apparent even in the entrance. The train ride from the main line at Merced is a constant up-valley progress, from a hot, treeless plain to the heart of the great, cool forest. Expectation keeps pace. Changing to automobile at El Portal, one quickly enters the park. A few miles of forest, and behold, the gates of the valley. El Capitan, huge, glistening, rises upon the left, 3,000 feet above the valley floor. At first sight its bulk almost appalls. Opposite, upon the right, Cathedral rocks support the Bridal Veil Fall, shimmering, filmy, a fairy thing. Between them, in the distance, lies the unknown. Progress up the valley makes constantly for climax. Seen presently broadside on, El Capitan bulks double, at least. Opposite, the valley bellies. Cathedral rocks and the medieval towers known as cathedral spires are enclosed in a bay, which culminates in the impressive needle known as Sentinel Rock, all richly Gothic. Meantime, the broadened valley, another strong contrast in perfect key, delightfully alternates with forest and meadow, and through it the quiet Merced twists and doubles like a glistening snake. And then we come to the Three Brothers. Already some notion of preconception has possessed the observer. It could not have been chance which set off the filmy Bridal Veil against El Capitan's bulk, which designed the Gothic climax of Sentinel Rock, which wondrously proportioned the consecutive masses of the Three Brothers, which made El Capitan, now looked back upon against a new background, a new and appropriate creation, a thing of brilliance and beauty, instead of bulk, mighty of mass, powerful in shape and poise, yet mysteriously delicate and unreal. As we pass on with rapidly increasing excitement to the supreme climax at the valley's head, where gather together Glacier Point, Yosemite Falls of unbelievable height and graciousness, the Royal Arches, manifestly a carving, the gulf-like entrances of Tenaya and the Merced Canyons, and above all, and pervading all, the distinguished mysterious personality of Half Dome, presiding priest of this cathedral of beauty. Again there steals over us the uneasy suspicion of supreme design. How could nature have happened upon the perfect composition, the flawless technique, the divine inspiration of this masterpiece of more than human art? Is it not, in fact, the master temple of the master architect? To appreciate the valley, we must consider certain details. It is 8 miles long, and from a half-mile to a mile wide. Once prehistoric Lake Yosemite, its floor is as level as a ball field, and except for occasional meadows, grandly forested. The sinuous Merced is forested to its edges in its upper reaches, but lower down occasionally wanders through broad blooming opens. The rock walls are dark, pearl-hued granite, dotted with pines wherever clefts or ledges exist capable of supporting them. Even El Capitan carries its pine tree halfway up its smooth precipice. Frequently the walls are sheer. They look so everywhere. The valley's altitude is 4,000 feet. The walls rise from 2,000 to 6,000 feet higher. The average is a little more than 3,000 feet above the valley floor. Sentinel Dome and Mount Watkins somewhat exceed 4,000 feet. Half Dome nearly attains 5,000 feet. Cloud's Rest soars nearly 6,000 feet. Two large trench-like canyons enter the valley at its head, one on either side of Half Dome. Tenaya Canyon enters from the east in line with the valley, looking as if it were the valley's upper reach. Merced Canyon enters from the south after curving around the east and south sides of Half Dome. Both are extremely deep. Half Dome's 5,000 feet form one side of each canyon. Mount Watkins' 4,300 feet form the north side of Tenaya Canyon. Glacier Point's 3,200 feet the west side of Merced Canyon. Both canyons are superbly wooded at their outlets and lead rapidly up to timberline. Both carry important trails from the valley floor to the greater park above the rim. To this setting add the waterfalls, and the scene is complete. They are the highest in the world. Each is markedly individualized. No two resemble each other. Yet, with the exception of the vernal fall, all have a common note. All are formed of comparatively small streams, dropping from great heights. All are wind-blown ribbons ending in clouds of mist. They are so distributed that one or more are visible from most parts of the valley and its surrounding rim. More than any other feature, they differentiate and distinguish the Yosemite. The first of the falls encountered, Bridal Veil, is a perfect example of the valley type. A small stream pouring over a perpendicular wall drops 620 feet into a volume of mist. The mist, of course, is the Bridal Veil. How much of the water reaches the bottom as water is a matter of interesting speculation. This and the condensed mists reach the river through a delta of 5 small brooks. As a spectacle, the Bridal Veil Fall is unsurpassed. The delicacy of its beauty, even in the high water of early summer, is unequaled by any waterfall I have seen. A rainbow frequently gleams like a colored rosette in the massed chiffon of the bride's train. So pleasing are its proportions that it is difficult to believe the fall nearly 4 times the height of Niagara. The Ribbon Fall, directly opposite Bridal Veil, a little west of El Capitan, must be mentioned because for a while in early spring its 1,600-foot drop is a spectacle of remarkable grandeur. It is merely the run of a snowfield, which disappears in June. Thereafter, a dark perpendicular stain on the cliff marks its position. Another minor fall, this from the south rim, is that of Sentinel Creek. It is seen from the road at the right of Sentinel Rock, dropping 500 feet in one leap of several, which aggregate 2,000 feet. Next in progress come Yosemite Falls, loftiest by far in the world, a spectacle of sublimity. These falls divide with Half Dome the honors of the upper valley. The tremendous plunge of the upper fall and the magnificence of the two falls in apparent near continuation, as seen from the principal points of elevation on the valley floor, form a spectacle of extraordinary distinction. They vie with Yosemite's 2 great rocks, El Capitan and Half Dome, for leadership among the individual scenic features of the continent. The upper fall pours over the rim at a point nearly 2,600 feet above the valley floor. Its sheer drop is 1,430 feet, the equal of 9 Niagaras. 2/5 of a mile south of its foot, the lower fall drops 320 feet more. From the crest of the upper fall to the foot of the lower fall lacks a little of half a mile. From the foot of the lower fall, after foaming down the talus, Yosemite Creek, seeming a ridiculously small stream to have produced so monstrous a spectacle, slips quietly across a half-mile of level valley to lose itself in the Merced. From the floods of late May, when the thunder of falling water fills the valley and windows rattle a mile away, to the October drought, when the slender ribbon is little more than mist, the upper Yosemite Fall is a thing of many moods and infinite beauty. Seen from above and opposite at Glacier Point, sideways and more distantly from the summit of Cloud's Rest, straight on from the valley floor, upwards from the foot of the lower fall, upwards again from its own foot, and downwards from the overhanging brink toward which the creek idles carelessly to the very step-off of its fearful leap, The fall never loses for a moment its power to amaze. It draws and holds the eye as the magnet does the iron. Looking up from below, one is fascinated by the extreme leisureliness of its motion. The water does not seem to fall, it floats. A pebble dropped alongside surely would reach bottom in half the time. Speculating upon this appearance, one guesses that the air retards the water's drop, but this idea is quickly dispelled by the observation that the solid inner body drops no faster than the outer spray. It is long before the wondering observer perceives that he is the victim of an illusion, that the water falls normally, that it appears to descend with less than natural speed only because of the extreme height of the fall, the eye naturally applying standards to which it has become accustomed in viewing falls of ordinary size. On windy days, the upper fall swings from the brink like a pendulum of silver and mist. Back and forth it lashes like a horse's tail. The gusts lop off puffy clouds of mist which dissipate in the air. Muir tells of powerful winter gales driving head-on against the cliff, which break the fall in its middle and hold it in suspense. Once he saw the wind double the fall back over its own brink. Muir, by the way, once tried to pass behind the upper fall at its foot, but was nearly crushed. By contrast with the lofty, temperamental upper fall, the lower fall appears a smug and steady pygmy. In such company, for both are always seen together, it is hard to realize that the lower fall is twice the height of Niagara. Comparing Yosemite's three most conspicuous features, these gigantic falls seem to appeal even more to the imagination than to the sense of beauty. El Capitan, on the other hand, suggests majesty, order, proportion, and power. It has its many devotees. Half Dome suggests mystery. To many it symbolizes worship. Of these three, Half Dome easily is the most popular. Three more will complete the valley's list of notable waterfalls. All of these lie up the Merced Canyon. Illilouette, 370 feet in height, enters from the west, a frothing fall of great beauty, hard to see. Vernal and Nevada Falls carry the Merced River over steep steps in its rapid progress from the upper levels to the valley floor. The only exception to the valley type, Vernal Fall, which some consider the most beautiful of all, and which certainly is the prettiest, is a curtain of water 317 feet high and of pleasing breadth. The Nevada Fall, 3/5 of a mile above, a majestic drop of nearly 600 feet, shoots watery rockets from its brink. It is full run, powerful, impressive, and highly individualized. With many, it is the favorite waterfall of Yosemite. In sharp contrast to these valley scenes is the view from Glacier Point down into the Merced and Tenaya canyons, and out over the magical park landscape to the snow-capped mountains of the High Sierra. Two trails lead from the valley up to Glacier Point, and high upon the precipice, 3,000 feet above the valley floor, is a picturesque hotel. It is also reached by road. Here one may sit at ease on shady porches and overlook one of the most extended, varied, and romantic views in the world of scenery. One may take dinner on this porch and have sunset served with dessert and the afterglow with coffee. Here again one is haunted by the suggestion of artistic intention. So happy is the composition of this extraordinary picture. The foreground is the dark, tremendous gulf of Merced Canyon, relieved by the silver shimmer of Vernal and Nevada Falls. From this in middle distance rises, in the center of the canvas, the looming, tremendous personality of Half Dome, here seen in profile, strongly suggesting a monk with outstretched arms blessing the valley at close of day. Beyond stretches the horizon of famous, snowy, glacier-shrouded mountains, golden in sunset glow. End of Part 4.